Modern buildings rarely last for several centuries. Bridges collapse, skyscrapers require major repairs, and residential buildings deteriorate within just 100 years. But in Rome, you can see structures that are over 2 millennia old, and they are still standing. Not only are they standing, they have survived earthquakes, wars, fires, human negligence, and even the direct blows of time. How is this possible? What made them so durable? Was it brilliant calculation, advanced construction technologies, or just a fortunate coincidence? Look closely at the stone facades of ancient Roman structures. They hold a history that defies all the laws of modern construction. It seems that the ancient Romans knew something that we have forgotten. Perhaps the secret is hidden in the building materials themselves, or maybe it's in the well-thought-out engineering solutions. To understand this, let's delve into what holds the magic of Roman architecture. How did the Romans build roads that do not crumble? If you were offered to travel on a road that is over 2,000 years old, you would most likely refuse. But what if I told you that such roads are still in use today? They were built without asphalt, without concrete, without 21st century technology. And yet they do not crack, do not crumble, and are capable of withstanding the load of modern vehicles. Roman engineers created roads that outlived their creators, their descendants, and even entire civilizations. Deep trenches, a multi-layered structure, and a special drainage system allowed these highways to remain level even after millennia. Can the modern world boast the same results? We spend billions on road repairs, but it seems the ancient Romans found a formula that solved this problem once and for all. However, roads are just part of the puzzle. Transporting building materials for such large-scale projects required ingenious solutions. How did the Romans move multi-ton stone blocks? Without cranes and dump trucks. Giant mechanisms of the Romans. Building grand structures requires not only intelligence but also strength. Today we use cranes and excavators, but the Romans worked with pure physics. They created mechanisms that could lift stone blocks weighing tens of tons. The secret lies in the ingenious devices developed centuries before the advent of modern technology. Huge wooden wheels, in which people walked, turning their weight into power, powerful levers and pulley systems. All of this allowed for the construction of the greatest architectural monuments. But what if the Romans invented something more than just machines for construction? Think about the cities where hundreds of thousands of people lived. They needed water, and in enormous quantities. Where did it come from? The answer is astonishing. The Roman aqueducts. Have you noticed that ancient cities were rarely built far from water? After all, it's impossible to live without it, let alone develop a civilization. But Rome was an exception. Where others had to build settlements near rivers, the Romans paved their own way to water. Their aqueducts were an engineering marvel that worked without pumps or electricity, yet provided cities with clean water. Imagine giant stone arches to which water flows from distant mountain sources. It travels hundreds of miles, bypassing elevations, passing through tunnels, and crossing rivers and gorges. But why stop there? The water, once it reached Roman homes, was used not only for drinking. The ancient Romans used it for technologies that seem incredible today. For example, heating buildings without fire and smoke. How did they achieve this? Architectural marvels ahead of their time. Imagine walking into a Roman villa in the middle of winter. Outside, the cold wind blows, but inside it's warm. The floor beneath your feet radiates a soft, even warmth, as if modern heating elements are hidden within it. Yet, in front of you is not a modern house. It's a structure that's 2,000 years old. The Romans were the first to invent a floor heating system that worked without electricity. Hot air from a furnace would pass through hidden channels beneath the marble surface, heating the building. This is not just a convenience, it's a brilliant engineering discovery that anticipated 21st century technology. But heated floors are just one of the many mysteries of Roman architecture. What about the giant domes that don't require supports? Or theaters with perfect acoustics, where even a whisper can be heard in the farthest rows? The more we study Roman architecture, the more it seems that ancient builders knew something that we have yet to understand. But the main secret of their long-lasting buildings is not hidden in the shapes and calculations, but in the very material from which they are built. What is its magic? The secret of the quality is in the construction. After we have understood the ingenious engineering solutions of the Romans, an obvious question arises. Why don't we build today? With the same quality, why do modern buildings require major repairs after just a couple of decades, while Roman structures stand for millennia? The secret lies not only in the materials, but also in the approach. Ancient builders paid attention to every detail from the foundation to the finishing touches, creating buildings designed to last for centuries, not just decades. Well, if you want your home or buildings to be constructed with the same attention to quality and reliability, consult the professionals from the Production Association. The System is a leading manufacturing enterprise offering a full range of works and services. Here, they offer the design of modular buildings and homes of any complexity, development of design projects, as well as interior finishing. And most importantly, the guys provide a guarantee for their work, which is especially important in our time. Perfect concrete. When archaeologists began to study Roman ruins, they encountered an inexplicable fact. Ancient concrete not only did not deteriorate, it became stronger with each century. Modern concrete, over time, cracks, crumbles, and requires repair. But Roman concrete is a completely different phenomenon. Its uniqueness lies in the use of volcanic ash, which reacted with seawater and strengthened the material's structure. This discovery became a true sensation for scientists. Research showed that Roman concrete contains small pieces of unhydrated lime, which, upon contact with moisture, initiate chemical processes, filling cracks and extending the material's lifespan. Essentially, it's concrete with a self-healing function. Modern engineers are still trying to recreate this unique recipe. If it could be replicated, it would change the entire construction industry. But was this concrete the only secret to the longevity of Roman structures, or was there another hidden ingredient that almost no one knew about? An unexpected reason for the durability of Roman structures. When we talk about Roman structures that have survived for millennia, we usually think of concrete, stone, and well-thought-out engineering solutions. But there is something that is often overlooked, the very approach to construction. The Romans didn't just build structures, they constructed them with eternity in mind. Their methods included meticulous material processing, thoughtful stone placement, and even a psychological factor. The builders understood that their work needed to endure through the ages. But there was another unexpected factor. Research has shown that the Romans might have used special organic additives in their concrete. There is a hypothesis that components from seaweed or even animal origin were added to the mix, which provided additional strength. It was this unique approach that allowed Roman buildings to withstand millennia. Today, we are only trying to unravel their secrets, and perhaps someday we will be able to build as reliably as they did. The Romans left us not only ruins but also a lesson. True quality is not tested by years. Ancient central heating floor. The Romans were not only able to build grand structures but also make life within them comfortable. Today, heated floors are a luxury not available to everyone, but 2,000 years ago in Rome, they were used everywhere. And they didn't just use them, they created an entire underground heating system that surpassed many modern technologies. This system was called a hypocaust. Its principle was brilliantly simple. A space was left under the floor through which hot air from the furnace would pass. The walls were also equipped with hidden channels, allowing the heat to spread evenly throughout the room. This solved two problems at once. It provided a comfortable microclimate and eliminated the risk of fire, as there was no open flame inside the premises. The hypocaust was used not only in luxurious villas but also in Roman baths, which sometimes occupied vast areas. Imagine that even in winter, you could enjoy warmth here without fearing the cold or smoke. But what's even more astonishing is that the Romans used complex engineering calculations to create these systems. They considered the direction of airflows, the material of the ceilings, and even the temperature differences. How did they achieve such a level of construction expertise? The answer can be found in another of their inventions, without which no developed city can be imagined. The sewer system of ancient Rome. When it comes to ancient civilizations, we often imagine luxurious palaces, monumental statues, and temples. But there is one invention without which life in huge metropolises would be impossible. It's the sewer system. Rome had one of the most advanced wastewater systems, which still functions today. The Cloaca Maxima, the largest Roman sewer, was originally created to drain swamps, but over time it turned into a full-fledged sewer system. Some sections of this ancient network are still in use in Rome today. The width of some channels reached 10 feet, and the depth 13. Carts with workers could pass through them, who were engaged in cleaning the drains. Unlike medieval European cities, where waste was dumped directly onto the streets, Roman engineers took care of cleanliness and hygiene. But it's not just about the sewage system. The city was designed so that rainwater would flow along specific routes, reducing the risk of flooding. Perhaps that's why Roman streets were dry and clean even during heavy downpours. However, the Romans were not only concerned with urban development. Their main goal was always strength and durability. They created structures capable of lasting for centuries. But how did they manage to build bridges and buildings that are impervious to both water and time? The secret of Roman bridges. Modern bridges often require repairs after just a few decades. But what if I told you that there are bridges in the world built by the Romans 2,000 years ago that are still in working condition? Roman engineers were masters in designing arch structures. Their secret lay in the precise calculation of loads, as well as the use of special wedge-shaped stones, keystones, which secured the arch, preventing it from collapsing. One of the most impressive examples is the Alcantara Bridge in Spain, built in the 1st century AD. It has withstood all natural disasters, wars, and centuries of use. And the Trajan's Bridge over the Danube, with its gigantic spans, remained the longest bridge in the world for a long time. But aside from the well-thought-out design, the Romans used a special building material that made their structures practically eternal. What is this material? A mystery, the solution to which has revolutionized modern scientists' understanding of construction. Water mechanisms ahead of their time. For the Romans, water was not only a source of life but also a powerful driving force. They learned to harness the energy of water flows long before the advent of steam engines and hydroelectric power plants. One of the most remarkable inventions was the water mills, which were used not only for grinding grain but also for cutting stone and wood. Imagine mechanized sawmills operating 2,000 years ago. Archaeologists have discovered remnants of such mills equipped with complex gear systems and crankshaft mechanisms similar to those used in the first steam engines. In some regions, the Romans even built cascades of water mills, creating powerful industrial complexes that processed enormous volumes of raw materials. But there were more unexpected uses of water. For example, the Romans used it to operate automatic doors in temples. Complex systems of counterweights and water reservoirs allowed entrance doors to open and close on their own, giving worshippers the impression that they were moved by divine power itself. However, the engineering achievements of the Romans were not limited to water. They knew how to properly organize the construction process to build a structure not only quickly but also with perfect precision. How did the Romans organize construction? When it comes to ancient buildings, we often imagine crowds of slaves hauling heavy stones and chaotic work, without a clear plan. But in Rome, everything was different. There, construction was a true science, and labor organization was on par with the best modern companies. Every stage of construction was thought out in detail. Unlike the chaotic medieval architecture, the Romans clearly divided responsibilities. Stonecutters, plasterers, engineers, everyone had their specialized tasks. They worked in shifts, which allowed construction to continue almost around the clock. Moreover, the Romans understood the importance of logistics. They built temporary roads and canals solely for the delivery of building materials. It was important not just to erect a building, but to do so as efficiently as possible and without unnecessary expenses. But even the most brilliant engineer cannot build anything without good tools. And the Romans created incredible devices that allowed them to accomplish what seemed impossible. Tools that changed construction. How could they cut perfectly even stone blocks without modern lasers and machines? How did they lift multi-ton structures to heights of dozens of feet without cranes? The Romans were true masters in creating construction tools. They used special saws with diamond coating that allowed them to cut even the hardest stone. Their drills could make perfectly round holes, and special tongs and clamps helped lift huge boulders. But the most impressive invention was the cranes based on the block and tackle system. The system of pulleys and ropes allowed a single worker to lift loads that were dozens of times heavier than his own weight. It was precisely thanks to these mechanisms that the Romans could construct buildings with the highest precision and speed. And yet, despite all their power, tools are only part of the success. The main secret of Roman architecture lies elsewhere. In one technology, without which none of their greatest structures could be imagined. The famous arches and domes. If you've ever entered the Pantheon or admired the Roman aqueducts, you surely noticed one thing: the Romans were masters of arches. This seemingly simple form allowed them to build the most durable and long-lasting structures in the world. An arch is not just an aesthetic element. It redistributes the load so that the pressure from above makes the structure only stronger. Thanks to this, Roman aqueducts, bridges, and arch faults have survived for centuries. But perhaps the most impressive achievement of the Romans were the giant domes. Think of the Pantheon. Its enormous concrete dome remains the largest in the world, despite being built almost 2,000 years ago. The secret lies in the gradual reduction of concrete density from the base to the top. The lower layers were made heavy and strong, while the upper layers were light, thanks to the addition of pumice. This allowed for the creation of a giant structure without the risk of collapse. The Romans didn't just build, they created technologies that are still used in modern architecture. Their achievements prove that true progress is not just about new materials, but the ability to use them correctly. We can only admire their genius. Or maybe it's time to learn to build the way they did once again.